I think the important thing about the project is it presents multiple. So we cannot, in as much as we decide to, or we just for the sake of clarity put a topic to it, there's always multiple and contesting issues like you rightly point out, which I think makes the project very interesting. I wasn't part of the filming. I came into the project in April as part of the communications team. So I'll be looking at today. I'll be presenting around the issue of making this invisible theater visible, and I want to focus on the opportunities and challenges of disseminating such a project, which falls within disruptive aesthetics on social media. So I'd like to start off by talking briefly about the disruptive aesthetics. And I just bumped into this interesting quote by O and She from 2015, where they talk about the five qualities of disruptive aesthetics. And they speak about how some of the features include how they expanded human creativity mediated by digital technologies, the idea of audience participating in the artwork and real-time feedback system, global communication based on a networked system, virtual reality of the augmented reality, and bio artwork based on human body and organization. But so here I want you to just talk about how, because Haley has given us a background of this idea of invisible theater. So according to Basto, invisible theater speaks to how performers act out a scene in a public space without the public's knowledge in order to stimulate reactions. And I won't draw much onto that because Haley has already given us a background about that. But I would like to just talk about one of the intentions of the project, which was to stimulate a broader conversation around diversity and difference in society from a critical perspective that interrogates the fault lines that exist along multiple axes of oppression. I'd like to conceptualize this broader conversation around Melissa Stein's 2010 argument, in which she speaks about the idea of, and I think this is the kind of conversation we really want because it serves the function of looking at the changing relationships between people who are differently positioned within the nation state. So these videos, after the production and stuff, they also become for the communicator a text, which is supposed to be disseminated in order to set critical conversations around the issues whichever issues that you might think of. So in this context, we contextualize this conversation in the post-apartheid South Africa. So I just want to talk about the process of communication, where prior to the launch there was an existing YouTube video that was created, and the first step was that we had specific launch dates online for the project. Particularly, we launched it initially on YouTube, and then we would send our links to the Facebook page. But we also did the exercise of also having uploading specific Facebook videos. So in this presentation, I just want to draw onto the idea of how I asked the question of since this invisible theater is considered one way of making the passive bystander assume an active role or whatever kind of a role, what happens when we try to mediate it and disseminate it? Because in its form, it actually plays out as a theater which speaks to reality and to life. And these scenes are now presented on social media in order to bring about multiple conversations along, with different constituencies. So I just wanted to start off by conceptualizing social media, and this goes along with some of the problems, the challenges and opportunities that we face. So you find that platforms such as YouTube and Facebook are more often treated as standalone elements rather than part of an integrated system. So this is actually evidenced by all of our YouTube videos, because in the case of Hayibo's YouTube videos, the total watch time on YouTube on the stats, 40% of the traffic was from external social media sites, even though this was on YouTube, and 21% was from other channel pages, which are registered or subscribed YouTube users, and 17% came through the YouTube recommendation system, which will also be part of some of the work that has been done around some of the shortcomings of this recommendation system. So, like trying to examine how trying to get into the space is also becomes not as it might not translate into the very same way that social media has been conceptualized. So I'm just looking at all of those nuances. And also 97% of the videos were viewed on the actual YouTube site, and 2.7% of them were actually from external apps and websites. So this actually helps us in exploiting some of the ideas of convergence, which is encouraging, because with this in mind, we would know how to communicate and disseminate across different devices, across different platforms. So, for example, the YouTube video titled "Baby, I Got This" had the following traffic sources. It had 33.6% people who tuned in from Twitter, 23 from Facebook, 21 from WhatsApp, and 5.5% from an actual YouTube recommendation system. So this actually confirms the assumption that when we are transmitting information among communities and social networks, it will be spread within this viral effect where we end up reaching some of the people that we actually do not know within our constituency, which is the apps of social media and how it actually helped this project. Because in total, all of the videos have close to 1.5 minutes viewed. But one should, in this presentation, I try not to adopt an essential positive perception of social media, because there are numerous factors that actually affect the circulation of information on Facebook and YouTube, which are directly and intricately linked to power. And if you think about Facebook, the development of Facebook, we find ourselves getting into a space which is actually like has an American flavor, American taste, and is actually commercial in nature. And the important thing that came out was the idea around, if you look at YouTube itself, that YouTube, in as much as it presents some unique opportunities, it actually has challenges for content discovery and recommendations. According to Ackerman and Grizo, YouTube started off as a user-generated content platform, but has since, after 2016, after being bought by Google, has now this drive towards professionally generated content. And when I was looking through some of this literature, it became very hard to kind of to really think about where we find ourselves, as in there's this idea of user-generated content and professionally generated content, and with the idea of the funding behind, because you find that PGC has higher funding, and I'll explain some of the stuff as we go on. So you find that PGC has increased over the years, which is professionally generated content. This means that amateur or low-funded science communicators now compete for views with a large, well-funded corporation or corporations such as BBC and the Discovery Channel. This is linked with YouTube's video recommendation system, which prioritizes videos already attracting a lot of views. So the recommendation system is actually an important source of traffic because for Hayibo, 17% of our views were from the YouTube recommendation system. But you find that, which is why I'd like to look at all of these, the dynamics, the online dynamics from, well, I'm not really much of a fan, but from a Marxist perspective of production and profit. And when we start to think of ourselves within that relationship, where the recommendation system involves the engagement metrics, popularity matrix, and also the interesting thing is that these can all be manipulated by a number of websites through fake views, comments, likes, and subscription. And how this is all linked to advertising and the like. It also now makes you realize that you find yourself communicating in a space that is what Manuel Castells refers to as network power, where each individual is trying to be heard on this platform. So also the business-oriented nature of social network sites is a hegemonic way to control the usage. If your content is not commercial, that is, if it's not paid for, if it's not sponsored, it becomes particularly hard to push. and this is linked to the recent Facebook ads. You see how Facebook is now, you know, like if you, it's much harder to get more likes and more followings on Facebook, but really that's not the issue from issue of my presentation. The issue also comes to this idea of measuring sort of the impact or the reach or the engagement, because this project actually is not really concerned with the plays and the clicks, but kind of the engagement, the conversation, the Q and A. So with Hayibo, we had, I mean, there was a great response to the project on YouTube over a short period of time. But in trying to use the average view duration of this video is provided by YouTube as a way of measuring impact or engagement, there were numerous limitations. For example, we had a 3.17-minute average view duration, which as an average suggests that some viewers barely watched the videos till the end, but it actually suggests that like at least like 10 to 15 people played the whole video. So this system is a way of trying to analyze the engagement on social media. Creates a lot of problems for such a project, because the average does not explain the experiences of all the 966 viewers. And the views themselves, because they find themselves in a system which rates things quantitatively, make it harder to measure the levels of critical engagement, because we are thinking more qualitatively in terms of what are we really talking about. You know, what do you think? What was provoked when you saw this video? You know, what do you think is the way forward? And we really, like in most of our videos, hardly had comments. It was mostly likes. So then it actually becomes a question of how do you really trace, you know, but I'll get to some of the positives of actually communicating through these platforms. Therefore, I think these are, so the views themselves, as I mentioned, become very quantitative. Therefore, I argue that although visual communication cuts the distance between the communicator and the audience, it actually reifies, or it actually multiplies the distance, because the communicator, particularly the social science communicator, becomes distant from the statistical interpretation of audience engagement patterns that YouTube or Facebook provides. And coupled with a lack of training on this analysis, this factor make measuring engagement even harder. So I'll go to Facebook now, where the video titled Quieten Down was launched on Youth Day. It was focusing on racism, and it was uploaded on the 10th of July 2018. It had 159 minutes viewed, and even though the video reached 286 people, there were 90 of these 286 people views with 3-second views, and 51 were 10-second views. So in the instance of these 3-second views, which is 66%, well, in the instance of these 3-second views, 66% were with sound on, and 60 the remaining anyway with sound off. And 86 of the views were autoplays, while only 14% were click to play. So while these stats suggest several instances of brief plays by viewers, the fact that none of these videos even had comments further complicates the job of retaining online feedback from the viewers. So unlike in a physical screening where one can view the viewers and get feedback from the viewers, use reaction as evidence, the visual space becomes limiting in this regard for such a project. Because without comments, reactions are hard to capture, because likes themselves do not tell us a complete story. And this is despite the fact that when one is steering a project, a bystander project such as Hayibo, they expect interaction from the audience or some form of question and answer within their constituency. So online it becomes difficult to stimulate the conversation, the dialogue, if the constituency, you know, is not interested. But let me move on to, as I move to the conclusion, that we had like 3 comments on the YouTube videos, and one of them was actually spam, and the other 2, you actually ask yourself like, what are they really talking about? And so, but there was really one interesting one, because I looked at it and I thought like, this is probably, so it was by a certain David Smith, who commented on the xenophobic one, and they were like, the cool people from the United States of Africa, laugh out loud. And then looking at it, I kind of figured that this is actually feedback because it had undertones located in this discourse which attribute things such as xenophobia to the barbarism of black people. And this is these are some of the few comments we had. Just to wrap up, in as much as comments ought to be recognized as legitimate responses by a real person who exudes racism through his comment on xenophobia, these sentiments speak to the current intersections of hate in South Africa. So it helped us locate the fact that this was actually a video on xenophobia, and this person just brought along a totally different topic. Also, I do not seek to undermine the power of social capital within this network power. So, because according to Bourdieu, it is impossible to account for the structure and functioning of the social world until one talks about capital in all its forms, rather than the one form recognized by economic theory. So here, in terms of instead of, and I think these are some of the positive things, ways of conceptualizing the subscribers, the comments, and the organic following. Because in as much as we didn't like pay for views, we didn't like pay for, we did not boost our posts so that we reach to many people using finances. That the idea that actually helps this project is that we also were going for a more organic engagement, organic following. So we know that within our constituencies, it's not obviously going to be, like the Big Mac of projects, but it's a project that within where we're operating, within critical diversity, within people who are interested in CDL and this kind of work, it actually resonates well. So social capital here plays an important role for lesser funded projects offline and online, and this actually helps for future physical engagement because people after seeing this online would be interested to come through for the follow-up workshops and the follow-up seminars, which brings me to the recommendations for the future as I close in a minute. I came up with a few recommendations on such a project. For example, one can consider using Facebook's question and answer function as a follow-up conversation, generating responses from followers after uploading the videos. Secondly, owing to the commercial nature of these two spaces, well, it could be also a good thing and we actually did consider boosting the post on Facebook, but then the other thing is you also have to ask yourself, like, what does it do for the project? Who else do you engage with, and is it necessarily the proper type of engagement, the engagement that you're actually looking for? So this is not to say, so I'm not saying that funding or being financially equipped is the only answer. Also, WhatsApp is a room to exploit the convergent and the intersecting nature of technologies in order to disseminate. This allows organizations to keep consistent engagement ongoing with the organic following. Thirdly, it is also important for one to regard social media as a virtual extension of physical dissemination programs, such as workshops, symposiums, and the like, which are part of the plans that we have for next year regarding Haley would know much about this, and also the idea that access to technologies is still one of the factors in this part of the world. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that converging various dissemination traditions is vital for effective and effective project communication. Imagine if Hayibo was only disseminated through social media alone. Wouldn't we have left a huge untapped constituency? What do you think? Thank you. This was just to get us into thinking about social media and how to find our way within the space when we're trying to communicate arts and theater-based projects.